All right, testing, testing, testing. All right, my mic is live. The mic is good. Hello, everyone. How was everyone doing today? Today is May 16th, 2019, Wednesday, and today is Geopolitics Talk. Glad you can tune in. Welcome to the YouTube channel. Please subscribe, like as you come in. As you know, Mondays we speak about AI, automation, virtual reality, those topics. On Wednesday, we speak about the topic of geopolitics. And Friday, we speak about the topic of economics including cryptocurrency, stocks, and any other subtopic that has to do with economics. As I said, today is Wednesday, so today the topic is economics. Since last week we spoke, the big news headline is the U.S. opening not a consulate, but America opening an embassy in Jerusalem, and how throughout almost all of the talk of this that has just went down, the repeated talk of Jerusalem being the forever capital of Israel. Currently, Jerusalem is not the capital of Israel. It's not the capital of any Pacific country. To put it in layman's terms, Jerusalem is tantamount to the Vatican. Even though it's in Rome, it's not a part of Rome. It's its own territory. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to get started by reading some headlines first. And there's one specific headline from, let's see, I believe it was Fox News. I know people are already signed because I said Fox News, but I'm just going to go ahead and read the headline to get everything started. I'm going to screen share with you all, and you all can read with me. Why Trump proposes to move U.S. embassy to Jerusalem is so controversial. New York Times, 2 days ago. The the new U.S. embassy in Israel is set to officially open in Jerusalem on Monday, as President Trump has formally recognized the holy city as the country's capital. See what I just said? Formally recognizing Jerusalem as the capital city of Israel, which, if we look it up, currently, let's see, capital city. Oh, still they say Jerusalem here. It should be Tel Aviv, if I'm not mistaken. But let's carry on. The opening comes after a day of celebratory festivals in Israel, juxtaposed to mass protests along the border of Israel that left at least 52 Palestinians dead and more than 1,000 injured Monday. It was the bloodiest day of the weeks of demonstrations. It was the bloodiest day of weeks of demonstrations that has cast a cloud over the embassy opening. The Trump administration's decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital was heralded by many pro-Israel activists, but decried by Palestinians and America's Arab allies. Ahead of the opening, Trump tweeted, "It's a great day for Israel." X sees Donald Trump's tweet. He says U.S. Embassy opening in Jerusalem will be covered live on Fox News and Fox Business. Lead up to 9 a.m. Eastern. Event has already begun. A great day for Israel. The article continues to say, finding the capital. The international community, and until 2017, the U.S. largely does not recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, as it is claimed by both Palestinians and Israelis. Hence, that's why I said Jerusalem is not a capital of any Pacific country. It's 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 a part of the greater, I could say, the greater good for right now. Like other countries, the U.S. kept its embassies in Tel Aviv, approximately an hour away. The U.S. moving its embassy could cause significant harm to the U.S. credibility as a mediator for peace talks between Israelis and Palestinians, said Dylan Williams, Vice President of Government Affairs for J Street, a left-leaning pro-Israel advocacy organization. Williams added that the move could undermine confidence from Palestinians and Arab countries that the U.S. will remain an impartial negotiator in efforts to create peace in the Middle East. So hopefully you're understanding that. Even seemingly minor changes of Jerusalem's status quo, either in fact or in law, have historically had the impact of sparking violence, Williams said. Support for Jerusalem. Millions of evangelical eyes were on Trump, waiting to see if he could keep his campaign promise to move the embassy. Longtime pastor John Hagee told Fox News ahead of the president's official announcement. I can assure you that 60 million evangelicals are watching this promise closely because if President Trump moves the embassy into Jerusalem, he will historically step into immortality, Hagee said. He will be remembered for thousands of years for his act of courage to treat Israel like we already treat other nations. If he does not, he will be remembered as just another president who made a promise he failed to keep, which would generate massive disappointment in the strong evangelical base that went to vote for him against Hillary Clinton, he said. I'm reading between the lines, and that's saying to me, okay, we voted for you, so in turn for our vote, you have to do this. That's what I'm reading. All right, let's read on. Hagee is the founder and senior pastor of Cornerstone Church, a megachurch in San Antonio, Texas. Money, that's what I'm hearing. He founded the nonprofit Christians United for Israel in 2006 as well. Okay, hopefully you all are listening to this and you all are understanding the political moves here. In March 2016 Gallup poll found that the majority of Americans didn't express an opinion when asked if the U.S. Embassy should move from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. But of those who did have an opinion, Americans were split with 24% supporting the move and 20% disagreeing with relocation. Now, I wonder who they specifically ask. Congressional authority. Trump isn't the only president to declare his intentions to move the U.S. Embassy. Both former presidents Bill Clinton and George W. Bush also pledged to move the embassy, only to abandon the idea once in the White House. Let's read on. Congress approved in 1995 the funding and relocation of the embassy to Jerusalem by 1999. But the law included a stipulation allowing for presidents to sign continuous waivers to stall the relocation. Okay. Every president since had used the waiver in an effort to avoid conflict with the peace negotiations. Very interesting. So what we're going to do here, we have another host in. Mike has joined us. How you doing today, Mike?
Hey, what's going on, brother? I'm good. Yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for asking. So what did you think both of what has been going on with this topic and the article I just read?
So, the United States always had two consulates,
Mm-hmm.
one in Tel Aviv and one in Jerusalem. But moving it from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem completely is a game changer because now you're recognizing Jerusalem as a capital, and Jerusalem by standards of the United Nations and the legality of it says that it cannot be the capital of Israel.
Okay. And in the article, I forgot his Dylan Williams. He was saying the political. This basically he was saying this political move is showing that America has a bias for Israel, which we all know, and that this bias can put says to other countries in the area, such as first off the Palestinians, Lebanon, Syria, the Middle East, everybody basically around Israel, that hey, we are giving Israel the backing of the U.S. of America, because even though we all, including that we put this embassy in Jerusalem, we're stating formally that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. So even though and piggybacking on what you just said, Jerusalem doesn't supposed to belong to anyone. This, it is a game changer.
You have to understand why the United States supports Israel. It's because Israel are colonialists in the same way that the British and the other Europeans who came to North American continent were colonialists as well and displaced the Native Americans, which was the indigenous population of the continent at the time, and the Palestinians were the indigenous population at the time that the Europeans came in 1948 and displaced the Palestinians. So they share a very colorful past that is in lockstep with each other. But now you're starting to see members of the African Union or the continent of Africa are starting to reject this whole entire position of what Israel wants to do with the Palestinians, as well as what Israel wants to do with the whole Middle East. South Africa was the first country in the African Union to actually object to this whole movement of the embassy, as well as what's happening in Gaza and in the West Bank. And then suddenly after that, I think you started to see a little bit more pushback coming from Egypt and Ethiopia.
Okay. Now, with this move of making Jerusalem the capital of Israel, and you just saw when I looked up Israel on Google, searched it, it said the capital is Jerusalem. So it's been changed all over. With this move, with this embassy now being in Jerusalem, do you think, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this question, I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you think they're going to try to just strong arm and seize all the land that Jerusalem comprises? You understand what I'm trying to say?
I heard some of what you said. You kind of cut out there.
Okay. Do you think because with this move, they're not going to share Jerusalem? They're not going to say, okay, this is our part of Jerusalem. They're just going to take the whole pie for themselves.
Well, the argument from the Palestinian, the PLO, which is the Palestinian Liberation Organization, their position is that Jerusalem is like a wife; it cannot be shared. So, in order for it to be recognized that it's the capital of Israel, it would have to get international recognition. Turkey does not recognize it. Syria doesn't recognize it. Russia is not recognizing it. Half of the African countries are not recognizing it. Most of your Caribbean states have abstained from any position at all because they don't want to get involved. Venezuela doesn't recognize it. See, the members of the Security Council have not recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. So they can say what they want and they can try to protest as much as they want. But if no one recognizes it internationally, then it doesn't matter.
Okay. Do you think there'll be a campaign to try to get other nations to recognize it?
No.
Okay. Okay. So this as of right now, it's just lip service.
Not so much as lip service. It's more of a statement to everybody else in the Middle East that this is where we stand.
Okay.
The issue is that how long can you hold out for, right? If no one recognizes you, then you run the risk of being isolated as a nation state, and you don't want to do that. Saudi Arabia can't openly support Jerusalem as being the capital because they're a custodian of the two mosques in Mecca and Medina, and that's not consistent with their political Islam for the most part. So, although behind closed doors, Saudi Arabia and Israel are sleeping together, the problem is that the rest of the Muslim world does not support the idea of Jerusalem being the capital of Judea. It's just not going to happen.
And this is the thing. This is historical religion. This is historical. This is religious. This goes deeper than a few decades of Go ahead.
I didn't say anything.
Oh, this goes deeper than just a few years or a few decades back. The current Jewish Israelis that are there now, they're European. They're not indigenous, like you just said, to that part of the world. They came from Europe. They came from the Polish, Austria, Germany region, the Caucasus Mountains, the Ashkenazi. They're Ashkenazi Jews. They converted to what you call it, Judaism.
Mm-hmm.
They converted to Judaism because from my understanding, at the time of I'm going to say holy wars between Christianity and Islam, they were caught in the middle. So if they chose Christianity, they were going to get slaughtered by the Muslims. If they chose Islam, they were going to get slaughtered by the Christians. So they chose to choose Israel, sort of like to abstain, to take their group out of that war at the time. So they continued this religion over hundreds, if not 1,000 years. They continued it. They hid their hand in a lot of things throughout history, but pertaining to this, they to the modern era, like you said, in the 40s, they wanted their own land. They looked around the world and they chose this piece of land, and this is where we're at now.
It was actually in 1917 with the Sykes-Picot Agreement after World War I. There was an agreement between the British and the French to carve up the Middle East in a way that it is today. So all these countries like Lebanon and all that stuff is all fictional and made up. There was no such thing as these states, and Israel happened to be one of the states that was sought to be created through the Sykes-Picot Agreement.
Sykes-Picot Agreement. Let me see if I can.
Pyske.
Let me
P
SIK.
PY.
Oh, SIK. Sykes. SIC. Pico. P.
Yeah, you can look up PYSKE PICO agreement. PICO.
See. I'm trying to find. Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. Oh, I think I got it. Let's share. Do a little screen share to share a little historical meaning to this. I'm looking it up on Wikipedia. Sykes-Picot Agreement. Can you see?
Yeah, I can see it.
All right. Officially known as the Asia Minor Agreement, was a secret 1916 agreement between the United Kingdom and France, to which the Russian Empire assented. The agreement defined their mutual agreement spheres of influence and control in southwestern Asia. The agreement was based on the premise that the Triple Entente would succeed in defeating the Ottoman Empire during World War One. The negotiations leading to the agreement occurred between November 1915 and March 1916, and it was signed May 16th, 1916. The deal exposed to the public in Izvestia and Pravda November 23rd, 1917, and the British Guardian on November 26, 1917, is still mentioned when considering the region and its present day conflicts, just like you just did. All right. So they just carved up the landmass, like it just said Asia Minor, just like they did Africa and the I forgot I forgot the name of the conference, but they just did this
Berlin
same.
Conference.
Yes, the Berlin Conference. They did this. Goodness gracious! So this must be an old map. Let's see, maps of Sykes-Picot Agreement showing Eastern Turkey in Asia and West Persia, and areas of control and influence agreed between the British and the French. Royal Geographical Society, 1910 and 1915. I think we have. All right, we have another person on the line. How you doing?
Good. How you doing?
All right, we're just talking about the new embassy in Jerusalem.
Okay.
All right, so yeah, they just carved up this whole area and just say, okay, these are the borderlines between these two countries. And I believe I see what you're saying right down here, Mike. This yellow part right here that was supposed to have been Israel.
Well, it's a little bit more than that.
Okay.
We're gonna have to mute Bamboozle.
Yeah.
What's up?
Yeah, you got an echo.
Okay, I'm wearing a headset again.
I'll just mute you whenever you want to come
please,
in.
yeah, go ahead and mute me.
Okay. It's not. Don't want to mute. Okay, I don't want to mute. I don't know why it does this.
Okay, let me see if I can mute myself. You know what? I think just using this old account, for some reason I can't use my newer one when I come in like this. So I'm just going to have to hop off real quick.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Still can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me close everything.
Okay.
Okay, still. Let me hold on. Still, let me exit.
All right. Now you said it was more than this piece of land right here in the yellow.
Well, there's more to it. I mean, they weren't supposed to have that much land to begin with. It was supposed to be just a small slither for the Jews at the time. Nobody at the time knew that 1937 was going to happen anyways. They couldn't predict that with Hitler and
Hitler. Yeah.
in World War II. Nobody could predict that back then. So their objective, which is Adolf Edelbrock, who was a Jew in the Nazi Nazi administration, basically came to the final conclusion that Palestine would have to be the place to put all the Jews, all the Zionists at the time. They wanted to put them in Uganda, South Africa, Kenya, Ethiopia, and even as far as Venezuela and Brazil.
Now, I wonder why they chose a few of these African countries as possible destinations. Was it like a historical reference? No.
No, it's just they're colonizers. That's how they see it.
I see what you're saying. Colonize first, then. Oh my goodness. All right, so now they own. Now it's getting bigger. It's getting bigger. They trying to get Jerusalem. Obviously, we spoke a few weeks ago, and these two strips are going to get smaller and smaller as they get braver and braver. They trying to annex the Golan Heights from Syria. Remember
not
when
just the Golan Heights,
go ahead.
Not just the Golan Heights, but southern Lebanon as well.
Remember when we talked? I forgot what it was. When Egypt invaded Israel, you saying Egypt invaded Israel, and they had them on a roast, but Egypt got too greedy.
1973, the Yom Kippur War.
Okay, now I'm thinking that's gonna happen to Israel, even though they have the backing of some other countries, such as including America, but they're getting too greedy. They're trying to expand too much, and they're creating a lot of enemies, and it might backfire on them.
They already have enough enemies, but the problem is, legally speaking, you can't create a state without the people. It would be like the equivalent of creating the United States without including Native Americans. It's just not possible.
Okay.
And you couldn't create the United States of America without Black people. It's just impossible, because Black people are part and parcel integrated into the Federation of the United States. You can't disconnect them. So when Israel wants to create this entire state for themselves, you can't ignore the Palestinians, because they make up a large portion of the population. It's just not possible. And Palestinians' position is that they can't claim to be Israeli or submit to the idea of being under the banner of Israel if they're Palestinian. They already have their flag, and they already have their nationality, and they already have their history. So they can't separate themselves by submitting to the state of Israel. Means that they gave up their own sovereignty. If they give up their sovereignty, then they're no longer Palestinian. They're now Israeli. That's impossible. No one's ever going to go for that.
No. I wouldn't expect them to. So you have to fight. There's no other. You have to fight, protest. There's no other choice. Okay.
Well, a lot of them are paying in blood. They're paying in blood for it right now. So
yeah. There's another article I see in the New York Times. It said 9 things to know about Jerusalem as U.S. Embassy opens. Let's see. I don't think they numbered it. It all began in Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv was the first seat of government for the embryonic state of Israel, which we just talked about, a work in progress. A report issued on Sunday by Israel's state comptroller, the government watchdog, chided the government for failing to carry out its own development plans going back to 2005 to strengthen Jerusalem. The goal was moving about 140 branches of 25 government ministries and offices to Jerusalem, along with their 2,700 employees. These include branches of the Prime Minister's office and the ministries of health, finance, transportation, culture and sports, education and welfare. The decision was made 11 years ago. Who lives in Jerusalem? This is a good one. Jerusalem, the largest city in Israel. They already see this rhetoric. It's like they're getting there. They're priming you to understand. Hey, if they ask a person that doesn't have a working knowledge of what's going on in these places, they hear this so much, so often, so long. They ask a person, hey, what's the capital of Israel? You'll say, oh, Jerusalem, because you hear it all the time. Jerusalem, the largest city in Israel, has a population of close to 900,000, about 10% of the total number of residents of Israel, according to the latest figures released by the National Central Bureau of Statistics. Jews make up 62.3% of the city's population, down from 69.5% 20 years ago. The Palestinian population has grown to 37.7% from 30.5% in 1998. Still, experts say Jews have been the largest religious group in the city for the last 150 years. Did you just hear that last sentence?
Repeat that.
Still, experts say Jews have been the largest religious group in the city for the last 150 years. And they're talking about Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's it's like media, man. Given the high birth rate among strictly Orthodox Jews, the character of Jewish Jerusalem is changing. Of 77,000 pupils in the city Hebrew language elementary schools, about 50,000 are now studying the ultra-Orthodox or Haredi system, which is ambivalent at best about Zionism. About 14,000 study in modern Zionist Orthodox schools. About 13,000 study in secular schools. When I hear this, it's funny because when I hear Black people say, "Well, I'm going to open up an Afrocentric school, African centered school," I would actually hear other Black people say that's racist. But this, which what Jews should be doing, they're teaching their own school children Zionism. They're being blunt up front about, hey, this is what we're teaching our children. And I actually have heard some Black people say, yeah, I'm okay with that. It's like okay, you don't know what you're saying type of thing. Not all Jerusalemites are Israelis. Okay. The unfinished war. The day after the United States Embassy opens in Jerusalem, Palestinians will mark the 70th anniversary of what they call the Nakba, or the catastrophe of 1948, where hundreds of thousands of Palestinians fled or were expelled from their homes in what is now Israel and became refugees. By the end of 1949, about 40 Palestinian villages in the Jerusalem area with a total population of more than 70,000 were emptied of their inhabitants. About 45,000 Palestinians lost their homes in urban areas on the west side of the city, according to the Palestine Liberation Organization's Negotiations Affairs Department. We are still living in Nakba, said Fawad Halak, the department's Jerusalem advisor, during a recent tour of the area around the new embassy. This is amazing. This is amazing. And even though I think, me personally, I think when people read this, they read the facts, and the facts are saying, hey, these Israelites took the land. These Israelites took people's property. They kicked them out their own house. They did all of these things to these people, going back to, like you said, 1917, this catastrophe that happened in the 40s. They did all of this, but people still side on the Israelites' side when they say, oh, they should just live in peace. When I've actually heard, I forgot her name. I believe I sent the video out. She was saying that the Palestinians actually voted to live in peace with the Israelites numerous of times, but it's the Israelites who said they didn't. They denied those peace talks. This is it's something. It's something.
Well, you have to be careful when you say that the what the facts are on the paper, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Jewish people, or I shouldn't say Jewish people, but the Zionists are actually the ones putting out the information. So part of what's driving all of this content is the information warfare aspect of putting out the message and having control over the narrative. Whereas people in America believe that the Palestinians are the bad people, and that the Jews in Israel are the good people, and that somehow, some way, that because of the Holocaust in Europe, that they have a right to everything else that doesn't belong to them. Right. So Palestine somehow belongs to the Jews because of the Holocaust and what happened in Europe. When in fact, if you look at some of the literature from the 1940s, in the early 1950s, some of the Palestinian Jews or the Palestinian Jewish people that were there, that were considered to be indigenous, said that the Europeans who came after World War II into Palestine were European invaders.
Mm-hmm.
And these were Jews saying this, right? So these were Jewish people saying this in Palestine. So it's a conflict between the indigenous population and the foreigners that came. The Europeans that you see now, for obvious reasons, are not indigenous and largely can't survive in that area very long.
And that's what amazes me. Like, okay, like, oh my goodness, I'm getting off character here. Okay, if you just think logically, okay, logically thinking, let's look at the map. And if you think logically, it'll raise a simple question: is if Israel is here and you suffered a Holocaust by Hitler in this area, how did you get how did you get from here to here? And that's one question. Mm-hmm. The next question, so logically speaking, if you know that, okay, they were trying to find a home for themselves, they chose this land. Well, why did you choose? You know, these are logical questions. Like, first, if you're originally from this area, why are you choosing areas over here in Africa and over in the Western Hemisphere? And how did you get up here? And if you're from this area, you should look like the indigenous people, which you don't. Like, these are just logical questions a person just think logically about it, should ask. And two, like you said, this area is very hot. It's very hot almost all year round, if not all year round. So you have to have some type of protection. And when I say protection, I'm talking about in your skin, some type of melanin, some type. I'm not talking about the type of protection you spray on yourself in the morning, afternoon, and night.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't survive this area, if your biological makeup dictates that you cannot survive in this area for long periods of time, you're gonna die if you stay in this area for long periods of time. And I understand they can make buildings with air conditioning now, but if you why what and I understand the question is there's colonizers, but oh my goodness, it's why are you there? You understand what I'm saying?
Well, they can get away with it because they have the backing from Europeans.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody feels sorry for the Jews because of the Holocaust, and you have to understand that Europeans are very much basically petrified about going down that path because they know what happened in Europe at that time. So that's still fresh in their memory. So for them, they sympathize with them while at the same time punish innocent Palestinians for a crime they never even committed. Right? They're Palestinians in this context are being treated the same way African American men are treated in America. That somehow, some way, the problems that are existing is your fault, and white people are the good people, and you're the bad person. So therefore, anything that happens to you is justified. And the same thing with Palestinians. We'll shoot these Palestinian kids that are playing soccer ball on the beach, and nobody could blink an eye at it. Well, what were they doing? They were playing soccer. They could have been terrorists. You know, that ball could have had a bomb in it. They could have kicked it at my naval battleship cruiser sitting in the middle of the Mediterranean. That's the mentality that they have. That's what happened, a couple years ago. No one questioned it.
What did Malcolm X say? The media will have you hating the people that are being oppressed and loving the people that are doing the oppressing.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, what's up, guys? How's it going?
What's going on, Instagram? How you doing today?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. How are you guys?
What's going on, man?
We're talking about the miracle that is the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem. On top of, they keep saying Jerusalem is the quote unquote forever capital of Israel.
Ooh, yeah. That I think that's like the death of the two-state solution right there. That's never going to happen now.
It's going to be more fighting.
Right. Well, they were very, very close to it back in I want to say, like, when was the Carter administration? 79?
77 to 79.
And yeah, during that time, they actually came to an agreement, and they were about to do the two-state solution. And then the president at that time of Israel, what's his name? I forget what his name is.
Might have been.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, he basically got assassinated by a fellow Jew, a really hardline right winger that's recently out of prison now for, the murder. But yeah, that was the closest.
It was Mossad that killed him. But
right.
They did the same thing. They did the same thing to Anwar Sadat, right? So Sadat actually recognized Israel as a part of the Camp David Accords. That's what it was, the Camp David Accords under Carter.
Right.
When Israel and Egypt had to come to an agreement after the 1973 conflict, which is the Yom Kippur War. The part of the agreement. A part of the agreement was that Egypt had to recognize Israel, which is something that they had never done before. And when Sadat agreed to that, Sadat got assassinated and then brought in what was the president?
President Mubarak.
Yeah, brought Mubarak in for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And Assad's father, which is Hafsa al-Assad, never recognized Israel, which is why they still have conflict between Syria and Israel.
Right. I think most Muslim countries don't recognize Israel, including even Malaysia and Indonesia don't, as far as I know.
Nobody from the actual Organization of Islamic Cooperation, I think the OIC, recognizes Israel. But you're starting to see Saudi Arabia sleep with Israel behind closed doors. The same thing with India too. They're kind of like two-time freaks.
Now, why is that?
Well,
what do you
Saudi
mean?
Arabia they're open with it now.
Why are they sleeping with Israel?
India or Saudi Arabia?
Both. Well, yeah, both. But start with Saudi Arabia, please.
Because Saudi Arabia has a problem with Iran,
right.
and Israel doesn't like Iran, so they're working together to take down Iran.
It's the enemy of my enemy is my friend deal.
Right.
Pretty much, but they really don't have anything in common outside of not liking Iran. Now, so if Iran decided to change, in the next year or so, and decide that they were going to have a new government in place and they weren't going to do any nuclear development, well, what happens with that relationship with Israel? So it kind of backfires on you.
So let me get this straight. Saudi Arabia is buddy right now with Israel, even though they don't have anything in common, just because both of them are enemies with Iran. And I'm guessing they did that because Israel has the backing of the U.S. government.
So we should make a distinction. The Saudi government working with Israel, but the people not at all.
So the Saudi government, now they're doing it because Israel has the backing of the U.S. government, and Israel goes to war. The U.S. government is going to be dragged into war.
Israel cannot fight a war on its own.
Right. So obviously, will the U.S. government be dragged in?
Without doubt. Well, that's what they're looking to do, right? Because you from your map, look at all the countries around it. There's Syria. There's Lebanon.
Right, Israel?
Yeah.
Okay. You got Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Iraq.
Well, no, I mean just in exactly close proximity that area. If they're gonna fight them, if they do it by land, they're gonna have to go through the bottom half of Syria near, Damascus, and then through Iraq, right? That's not really gonna work very well. And then the other one is
I was just gonna say that they wouldn't make it that far.
Right, exactly. So what's the other option? It would be by sea, right? But there's no sea there. So then what's the last option? By air. And they can't really do that, right? There's Turkey up there, there's Syria, and then there's Jordan flanking it on all sides, right? So the only person who could operate like that would be the U.S.
And the Israel government will use the American military to fight its war.
Not necessarily. They have a lot of Jewish people in the United States that are willing to put on a uniform and go into Israel and go fight a war for them, even though they'll lose. The idea of doing all the bulk work, they'll make the United States do it, but the United States doesn't want to pay for it either. Most of the your political body in the United States, at least from the Democratic Party, do not want to send soldiers in to fight for Israel because it's too costly for little gain.
Yeah, that is little gain.
Well, I think Saudi Arabia would be willing to pay for it. They offered to pay for Syria, so I think they would pay for Iran as well, because they're never going to send their soldiers.
The problem is you can't invade Iran, right? It's a mountainous country. Right. You can't send tanks into there. You can't send your air force into there because you'll get picked off really quickly. And you can't send your warships into there because there's sea mines all over the place, and you'll risk losing all your frigates and your corvettes and your aircraft carriers going into there. You just won't win.
Well, you're thinking too logically about it. That's the logical answer, but that doesn't mean that's the answer they're gonna choose. But at least for, the way it looks like right now. And actually, there's another one that I recently saw, which was there's actually a military base in Israel for the first time in like history. Hey, you guys have any thoughts about that?
Well, they all, in my opinion, they always had some kind of military-to-military cooperation. It's not uncommon.
Right. That's true. But I'm saying an actual military base. No other president has ever put a military base in Israel directly, for obvious reasons, right? Because the Palestinians and the Israelis are always going to have conflict, and they're going to try to, quote unquote, shoot missiles. So it might be just my theory, but I think that's the pretext they're looking for.
It's, to me, and I'm coming from a logical place. I understand logic doesn't always play a part. If I can't say that, I'm just coming from an outsider looking in. There's going to always be conflict in this area, primarily because of Israel's doing. There's always going to be conflict. So these areas are always going to be in some type of conflict. These direct areas and these areas that are not direct in this small piece of strip right here. So there's always going to be some type of battle, some type of war going on. There are always going to be people killed, civilian casualties, because of mainly Israel's doing. So what's the purpose of even backing Israel if you know, okay, you're always starting something? Why should I back you when it's going to be costly to us? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I was going to let Anti-Gravity answer.
Oh, sorry. I heard your question. Could you? I didn't hear your question. Could you?
I'm saying, like, why is it doesn't make sense logically for. And I understand. I think, Mike, you say they're not going to do that because it's going to be costly, but just to be in talks with Israel when there's always going to be some type of battle, some type of war going on, primarily because of Israel's doing, there's always going to be some type of war, some type of battle going on between the states, the states that border Israel, such as Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and even with the other states that are close to Israel, such as Iraq, Iran, Turkey, and so forth, even Egypt. So why would America even be in talks of talking about backing Israel when they're always starting something?
Right. Well, I guess there's two parts. One part is the Israeli lobby and people who support Israel are incredibly powerful in the United States in terms of lobbying power. No congressman could even criticize, Israel without receiving, blowback, or at the very least a bunch of headache and accusations of being, anti-Semitic, that kind of stuff. And then the second is because here domestically, the United States, the evangelical community supports, us supporting Israel. Not necessarily for the reasons that you would think, because they're very against them. Like at that speech, one of the preachers, said something about, they're gonna go to hell or something like that. Not at that speech, but before. He's been known to make, anti-Semitic comments and whatnot. But the reason they support them in this weird, twisted way is because they believe if Israel becomes powerful, they'll become the global if we support them and they win, they become the center of the one world government, and that will usher in the second coming of Jesus.
Oh my God!
Essentially, is the idea.
You, Mike, what do you think about that question?
Well, we can also look at the military-industrial complex. Lockheed Martin, Boeing, General Dynamics. All those companies have a vested interest in wars being continued because they have military hardware that they need to build and need to sell, and so on and so forth.
And this is what I like about these type of talks. Just understanding this, what you two just said, is the chessboard. You verbally laid out the chessboard, and you verbally told people, if not all the pieces and where they stand on the chessboard, people now have a good view of what's going on the chessboard. And knowing that, I wouldn't enlist in no military, at least no combat branch of the military, such as the Marines and the Army, knowing that my life is only for the benefit of
a foreign country,
right? For a foreign country and for profit.
Look up Ken O'Keefe on YouTube. He was a ex special forces, ex Navy SEAL, I think, who renounced his U.S. citizenship because he didn't want to fight any more wars on behalf of Israel. He has a whole YouTube channel.
Okay,
Ken O'Keefe.
U.S. Navy SEALs, hoo-yah.
He's ruthless, man. He's ruthless. He called one of the politicians a political prostitute on his knees giving fellatio.
Oh,
goodness!
He said this on live TV.
Wait a minute. That's some real shots fired. To put in.
Yeah, he takes the gloves off. He takes the gloves off when it comes to debates. With geopolitical debates, he takes the gloves off.
Yeah, I was actually recently thinking about this. So if this, moves in the direction of a conflict with Iran, they're gonna have to bring back the draft because they don't have enough people, right?
Right.
They stretched thin as it is.
They don't, and I've read stories where they're struggling to meet the requirements to enlist people in the military.
They even had to kind of lower the requirements a little
bit. Because before America wouldn't take any, because when I went in the military, America would, if you had a tattoo on your neck and it was visible, nope, you couldn't go. It was very strict. Now they're lowering their requirements to enlist, and with this feminine talk, women saying we're equal. Right. I always say,
I think they've been added to the draft as well.
Right? Yes. I say, hey, be careful because you just might get what you want, and when they start that draft, you going. You are going. You want so bad to be in the Marines. You want so bad to be in the Army. You're not you're not going to strategically think like a man. If a lot of talk is being said in the news of bringing the draft back, trust me, a lot of men are going to be proactive. They're either gonna go to Canada and live in some town outside of some lake way north up in Canada and not be heard of until everything blows over and say, oh, I was stricken with some type of sickness, clinical sickness, and B, they're going to enlist in the Air Force or the Navy. They're going to enlist in the Air Force or the Navy before that draft comes. But if that all that talk gets heated, gets enough where they say, okay, this is going to be a draft. Let me go to the Air Force today because they're not combat branches. And all these women talking about we should be in the military. Okay, frontline infantry.
Right. Yeah. As I was thinking about this, I just applied to master's programs just in case.
Right.
Once
Right.
it starts, I can join the master's program, and then I have deferment.
You'll be officer.
What was it?
You'll be an officer.
No, I think that they have a university deferment.
Okay.
You're in the university, they won't draft you.
Well, we also could take in something else into consideration. Going back, to the topic, the new Iraqi president is anti-Iran right now, and that works to the United States' advantage and works to Israel's advantage. So there's a probability that the superhighway that they've been working on all this time may not come to fruition 100% because of the new leadership in Iraq after the elections last week. And then you take into consideration Venezuela and all the rhetoric coming from John Bolton about how they're going to invade Venezuela. It's a bit of a stretch for the United States to fight Iran, Syria, Lebanon, and Venezuela, and expect that North Korea is going to trust them with their life in their hands over the nuclear deal.
They're going to be we're going to be spread too thin, and it's going to leave us open to attack. But
are you sure the new is it prime minister or president of Iraq? I forget.
It's a new president.
President. Wasn't he also the leader of the insurgency against the United States?
One of the many factions.
Right. So he's not particularly pro-American either.
Right. He's not pro-Persian. He's actually he's a hardliner against the Persians. So
right.
I don't know. What are you gonna say, Lano?
No, what you're all saying just blows my mind because, again, I'm going to reiterate. I thought politics and this was left to the guys who were way smarter than me. Mm-hmm. And I'm reading these things. I'm listening to you all give this insightful information, and I'm looking at the maps, and I'm thinking to myself, how in the world are you going to do that? If you're trying to fight 4 to 5 people and you can't even reach your enlistment requirements, that's going to leave you thin. That's going to leave your military thin, and that's going to leave you open for attack. That's common sense. And on top of that, that means you're not going to be able to put as many troops on the ground in these battles in these wars you're trying to fight that you need to put on the ground to win the war, which means they're going to get slaughtered.
Mm-hmm.
And if let's say they try to fight Iran, and Iran is, like you say, 70 to 80 million strong. It's very mountainous. It's very hard to fight there. Is turn
on the satellite mode so you can see how their terrain.
Let's see.
Well, you wouldn't be necessarily invading Iran. You would be trying to take out the Iranian military in Syria and Iraq, because that's where they are right now. There's 100,000 Iranian personnel in between Syria and Iraq right now. That's a military. That's a whole military that you're going up against outside of Iran.
And then in war, everything is not perfect. You're going to make mistakes. People get killed by friendly fire all the time. And to be honest with you, I'm just going to be straight up honest with you. Oh, okay, I like this feature. I'm going to be straight up honest with you. People get killed by friendly fire on purpose. All this racism that's in this military, it's going to be some people that are going to take their chance to quote unquote put a cap in somebody because they've been in the military for 7 years and they prevented them from moving up. You know, all this racism, and you put this. It's going to be a perfect storm. And like I said, the military war is not perfect. You fire a missile, it hit the wrong target. Now you got Russia and China saying, "Hey, you killed our people. Now we gotta try our hand in this battle, in this war, some type of way."
Well, you know, to be honest with you, China knows that what's going on. So they've been preparing their people for quite some time using the United Nations. See, China doesn't believe in putting military bases all over the world in the same way the United States does, because they have a different strategy. But they've been using the United Nations as a building block to expand their military. But coincidentally enough, the Chinese have been taking most of the casualties in the United Nations peacekeeping missions. So I think they lost 400 people or 450 peacekeepers just in the last year and a half alone, between Congo, South Sudan, and many other places now in the conflict zones of Chad and those places, Mali. China is taking it on the chin right now in terms of where their military personnel needs to be stretched to, what the risks are going forward. And now you're starting to see, just to shift the map one more time. UAE is have gotten out of Somalia and moved into one of the islands outside of Yemen, and now Turkey has taken over Somalia and is building up the Somali military because they have bigger ambitions as well.
Right. And there's a huge Chinese military base in Djibouti now as well.
Well, seven military bases inside Djibouti, right? So you have Chinese, the Americans, the French, the Japanese, the British, the UAE, the Emiratis, and you have what do you call that now? What do you call these guys now?
The Saudis or the Turks?
I think the Russians wanted to put a military base there, but they got denied, so they ended up putting it inside Sudan.
Okay.
Now that leads to, that segues perfectly to this next article I brought up by the Geopolitical Monitor, and the heading is America's Chinese Headache in the Horn of Africa. Over the past several weeks, U.S. pilots operating out of the American military installation of Camp Lemonnier in Djibouti, key to the war on terror, have had to deal with an unusual, if not entirely unexpected threat. Military-grade lasers allegedly coming from the new Chinese base next door. As far as U.S. military officials are concerned, these lasers represent a serious danger to pilot and aircraft. The Pentagon went so far as to file a formal complaint to China about it. Beijing's response: the Chinese side consistently strictly abides by international law and the laws of the local country, and is committed to protecting regional security. This, oh my God, this is a powder keg waiting to explode. Waiting to explode. This is ridiculous. And a war is going to break out because it's too many people building up their military, strategically putting bases in places, and for nothing to happen.
Well, they have to put their bases there because it's the closest to the Red Sea to watch all their trade traffic go through there, especially Japan and especially China, because they ship a lot of goods into Europe that way. So there's an urgency to watch that route. Now, the Emiratis have a vested interest in building up their military there because they are a merchant state themselves. They ship a lot of goods and oil and gas as well. Now, when you factor in all of these militaries there has to be some kind of cooperation agreement there between them to try to figure out how not to step on each other's toes. Whether or not they signed anything, I don't know. But what it seems like to me is that they know that something's about to happen, and they don't want their ships being hijacked. So there's a lot of anti-piracy policing going on in the Red Sea because of all the Somali pirates that have been hijacking ships, you know, for the last few years.
Mm-hmm. Mm. It's a power. I still it's that I completely understand and I completely agree. It makes logical sense to protect your goods. It makes logical sense, but it's still creating a powder keg where all of these things are going on. The strategic planning, the building up your military, the shipping of arms to your military base. And I forgot who said it. One nation may see another nation's attempt to protect themselves as being offensive, and vice versa. So it's a bad situation. I'm not going to go as far to say World War III, but something can break out.
Well, World War III already broken out in Syria, if you really want to be technical about it.
Right.
Goodness. And I'm looking at the landscape. Syria looks outside of the coastal area. Syria that's just barren land. It looks like that from the satellite image. I could be wrong. Still can be spots that are good, but it's flat, barren land, and then you have all of these mountainous regions in Turkey and Iran, Afghanistan, Iraq. Okay.
Right, and there's always a bunch of different groups in the area with their own interests, right?
Smaller factions you're talking about, right?
Right. Like if you look even within Iraq itself, we've basically screwed everyone in the country.
Yeah,
the Shias and the Kurds in the north, as of very recently.
So they have vendettas, and trust me, they're not forgetting about that. They're not forgetting about that. They're just waiting for the perfect time.
You have to remember that they all have a lot of military hardware that's modernized because of whatever the United States left behind or whatever the Russians had supplied them. And the Russians have a military contract as of recent under Putin to supply Iraq with S-400 missile systems, surface-to-air missile systems, as well as MiG fighter jets and T-72 battle tanks.
Right, and the Kurds all have all American hardware from when they were being supported by them. So everyone.
So there's two factions. There's actually two factions of Kurds. So there's Kurds that are with the Russians, and there's Kurds that's with the Americans.
Right. And then there's the Kurds in Turkey as well, and the Kurds in northern Syria. Are those? No, those are the American-backed Kurds, correct?
The American-backed Kurds are east of the Euphrates, and the Russian-backed Kurds are west of the Euphrates.
Oh, so it's opposite. Yeah.
The Euphrates River. Now the Turks are planning to Somali military to go into to take over pieces of the northern part of Syria, which is Afrin.
Wait, they're going to try to send Somalis to Afrin?
That's what they've been training Somalis the last year and a half or so.
Wow. Okay, that's bold.
Well, you know what it does? It gives Somalia a new seat at the table for geopolitics, and it gives the Turks less men to actually go in and spend.
I was just thinking about that. That's a good move, because if you know you're on the cusp of multiple battles and multiple wars, you're trying to save your military. So you're thinking, okay, who's starving? Who's starving for attention? Who's starving to get a piece of the pie? Like you just said, Somalia, okay, you come in on the auspices of we're going to help you. But in all actuality, we need expendable people to fight a few wars, fight a few small wars, so we can fight the big wars and not have our military weakened by the small wars.
Right, but actually, the Turkish have a lot of support in Somalia because they've done a lot of good work helping them out, and in small operations, try to stabilize parts of the country. So they have a lot of support.
To be honest, I don't think they would do that out of the kindness of their heart.
Well, but
it's a cheap place to invest into from a financial standpoint.
Yeah.
They only spent less than $500 million building up their airport, building up some of the hospitals, and putting their embassy there, as well as paving out the roads, and that provided all these jobs for Turkish contractors coming out of Turkey, which solidified Erdogan's position to be the president, because he's providing jobs, he's providing revenue for the country. He just reestablished diplomatic relations with Russia for Turkish contractors going in and out of Russia, as well as flights for tourism coming out of Russia, because it made up 1/10, not 1/10, but 10 to 20% of their revenue for GDP. And plus, this puts Somalia back into stability, because now they're not so much dependent on Ethiopia and the rest of the surrounding East African states.
The simple strategicness of that. Okay, we're gonna come in. Okay, who's trying to run for president? Identify all the people who's trying to run for president, and out of that group, identify who has the weakest personality, who can fold. Okay, these people. Okay, who can fold the most, or even support all three. Go to them and say, we'll lay a few concrete on some roads. We'll build up a little infrastructure, because your infrastructure is significantly worse than ours, and whatever we build it up to is not going to cost us a good amount of money. In return, you allow us to do this. Whoever says yes, that's your man. The simple strategicness of this is my opinion genius, to tell you the truth.
Oh, then you have to also take into consideration that the Russians are trying to do the same thing in Somaliland. Even though Somaliland is not an internationally recognized nation state, it's being cultivated in the same way that Somalia is being cultivated by the Turks. Because the Russians don't want to piss off the Ethiopians, and they don't want to piss off the what do you call that? What's the other? The Egyptians, and they don't want to piss off the Sudanese, because most of these states are in conflict with each other politically in one way or another, because either the Nile River or some of the other resources and harboring of terrorists. So the Russians are playing the strategic card here too.
This is amazing.
And we talk about a lot of this stuff, but and you and I, Lana, have talked about this, about where do African Americans play a role on the geopolitical stage.
Simple. It's right there. It's right in front of you. Yeah.
Yeah, well, when Childish Gambino becomes the focus of the conversation, you can't really You can't really sit at the table.
And that's what I'm saying. Like last week, it literally was Issa Rae and Kanye West. Now it's Childish Gambino. Next week is going to be somebody. No, it's Childish Gambino and Cynthia G this week. Next week is going to be two more other things. And that's the thing. It's like, don't you fucking see, like every 2 weeks you talking about something, two different things? Like, stop it. Stop. It's like you want to scream at them, stop it. And they looking at you like you crazy. It's like, oh my God, like, don't you see this? Look what's going on over here. Look what we can get. We talked about Haiti. When to another strategic move, whoever is the superpower, once they too thin to continue to oppress people, bam, that's when you go in. Okay, we got a limited window, our resources together. Hey, Haiti, we're gonna do this, but you got to shut up about it. Okay, that's your time to put your footing on the ground. But you can't do that. Oh my God.
Right, and it's not like African Americans haven't contributed to the continent. But if you see like Ethiopia, their air force and their their private airplane line, it was actually built by an African American man. I forget what his name is.
Yeah.
We have a statue of him in Addis Ababa.
And when people say we African Americans, and I don't want to single out African Americans. There's other diasporans, but African Americans, we have the country. We did this. As soon as we say that, they want to single out Liberia. Oh, Liberia, this happened, so it may happen. Come on, you don't even know the whole truth. Come on, and the war in Liberia killed hundreds of thousands of people. It wasn't that many Americo-Liberians in Liberia. It wasn't that many. So that war was over tribalism also. It mainly over tribalisms. Oh my God. I don't know. But you can't take everybody. And you're gonna have to kill off half the people just to advance, because the people that you kill off, they're going to be the ones that are going to try to fight you.
I actually had a map that I was going to send to you. I forgot to send it to you of the airstrikes in Syria, where each and every plane bombed and which plane hit it, and where the Iranians are, where the Syrians are, how much territory do the Syrians have, where the Russians' military bases and technical operation centers. I'll probably have to send it to you after the broadcast. But yeah, I mean, 28 planes, F-16, F-15 fighter jets went into Syria and basically tried to annihilate the Syrian government with 50 missiles. Now, half of them were knocked down by Syrian surface-to-air missiles and electronic cyber warfare capabilities. So they're safe on one half, and on the other half, they're very vulnerable because they don't have the capability to respond in such a short amount of time. When you have a plane doing Mach 1, Mach 2, it's kind of hard to keep up with that.
Yeah,
to determine whether or not this is real.
And when you say cyber, the cyber tech capabilities, you mean when the missiles were launched, they were able to intercept the coordinates?
So when you use cyber warfare capabilities against missile attacks, what you do is you disorient or you hijack the missile itself. So the missiles have little computers built inside of them, carrying it to its location. And if you can get the frequency of that missile at the time that it's fired, then you can disorient that missile, or you can hijack it and just bring it to the ground.
Okay, like Okay, not land, but have it go somewhere, strike somewhere else.
Right. You could have it hit the desert
Okay.
instead of hitting the facility.
Okay, okay. Now I like that. That's pretty good. But like you said, they don't have the the I guess the infrastructure to continuously do that.
They have the infrastructure, right? So you have satellites from Russia that are constantly scanning your area, which would be Syria in this regard. There has to be a data analysis that comes down really quickly to determine whether or not this is a legitimate threat or not. So then your technical operations center has to put a plan in play to knock this thing down, or make a decision at some point. When you have these planes that are flying at Mach 1, Mach 2, it's just not really sufficient. Now, if you're talking about cruise missiles fly a little bit slower. They're more predictable. And you don't have to have a whole lot of effort put in to take them down. You can kind of fire a couple surface air missiles and kind of knock down the ones that you know are going to be imminent threats to your to your threat surface.
Okay. Interesting.
And Syria does have some of the world's best hackers as well.
Then I have what?
I said Syria does have some of the world's best hackers as well.
They say that, but I
think they put a lot of work and effort into it, especially being on the border with Israel. I mean,
I think it's overstated.
Anti-Graph, I think you echoing.
Oh, am I? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's overstated of what their cyber warfare capabilities are, because it has yet to be proven as to where they're getting their intelligence from, right? If they were so intelligent, they were so great at at the cyber warfare capabilities, they would have more proof of taking out Israeli assets. You don't really see Israeli assets going down all that much. Now, Israeli cyber warfare capabilities are top notch. I would say it's probably top 3 in the world compared to Russia and the United States.
So it's Russia, U.S., then Israel.
I would say the United States, Russia, and then Israel.
Hmm.
Well, what about North Korea? They also have, a lot of cyber warfare capabilities themselves.
Not necessarily, right?
You echo anti-gravity. Oh, okay. It's good. Wait, yeah, it's good.
So the thing about North Korea is how do North Korea, or how does the state of North Korea get their internet access? They don't get it from the south because there's a DMZ in between that blocks them from even having any sort of landline communications. And the border between North Korea and Russia is pretty much sealed off, and they don't get any landline communications from there. So their landline communications come from China. So China provides the backbone internet to the North Koreans. How would anybody know what North Korea's capabilities are if they're using a proxy to get into China's infrastructure to get public access to the internet? Right? No one would really know if that was North Korea or not, because China's network infrastructure doesn't even allow you to see what the origin IP is, or what the origin state of the attack is going to come from. You would never know that unless.
Am I still echoing? Sorry.
Yeah.
How about now?
Testing. Still echoing. I don't know what it is.
Now, it wouldn't be all that uncommon for any country to have a cyber warfare program. I mean, that's just typical, right? It's just a part of electronic warfare capabilities that you would have that. Most nation states do have some form of cyber warfare capability strategy in place, whether it's North Korea or it's Egypt or it's Syria, especially the United States. Everybody has one because all the tools are available on the internet for you to have, and they can customize their own tools to what they want it to be.
Am I still echoing?
Testing. No, you good.
Okay. But North Korea has been on, a campaign of, bank robberies and Bitcoin scams. So they're doing something right, at least.
It wouldn't be the state of North Korea. It will probably be some other rogue actors that either landed in China or probably in Malaysia. They just don't have the infrastructure in place to actually do anything. I mean, most of their computers are still running Windows XP. So,
right, but they send their elite hackers out of the country,
right?
Do operations for them. So that's why I'm kind of getting at.
Right, their elite hackers are really different from their, from the state itself.
No, but they're state hackers. So basically, whatever they're doing is on behalf of the state.
I question that that intel. I question intel like that because most other nation states that are in competition with you or are adversaries to you are going to know who's coming in and out of their country. That this is how they assassinated the Palestinian PhD graduate who's into rocket and missile development, and I think it was in Indonesia or Malaysia a couple weeks ago. Mossad basically assassinated him. So they're watching all of these assets, so they know exactly who's coming in and who's coming out, who has access to what, and what your DNA is as well, because they swap for DNA samples whenever these guys are in transit. Whether you drink out of a cup or you took a shit in the toilet, they grab all that stuff.
Man.
Yeah, interesting.
I would say that's extreme, but to be honest, that's standard. That would be standard.
Right. Right. So I think people put too much emphasis behind North Korea, or it was Russian hackers who took down the election, and there's really no evidence, right? It's just this kind of made up stories to make it seem like you're dealing with an elephant when in fact it's nothing like that. You have cyber contractors for hire who are red team based that can basically break into anything, whether it's a hotel room or into your savings and loans bank or a nuclear facility. They can do it if you pay them enough money to.
Okay.
And it's never just one person. They work in teams.
Right.
Man, this is interesting. Anybody have anything else?
Well, you know what, Lionel? This is what you want to get into. This is the cost to pay the boss, or the cost to be the boss. So
yes. Yeah, I guess be careful what you wish, what you say you want, because you just might get it.
Do you have any more topics then, I guess?
Those were the only two I can bring up. The embassy was the biggest one. And I know we've been talking about the Horn of Africa for a few weeks, and I found a few articles, that article on that.
Mm-hmm. So can I ask you guys this question?
Go ahead.
What do you guys think about the second scramble for Africa? At least that's what it looks like to me, with all the major powers, trying to influence and, build, strategic, have strategic access to resources like water and minerals, that kind of thing.
I think the assets of natural resources is secondary to capitalism itself. So I think what many of these Western European governments want is complete control over the capitalist system that's happening in Africa under their guise. And with the Chinese coming in, and basically disrupting all of these capitalist processes that were formerly in place, it makes it hard for them to survive. Them being the Western Europeans in the United States, they can't play in an area like Africa if there's competition.
Right, and they do some really dirty shit too. Like for the French in West Africa, they force all their government, former colonial states to pay a colonial tax, and they have to keep something like, what is it, 50% of their bank, the wealth in their bank in French banks.
80%.
Is it 80%? Oh shit, it's higher than I thought. Yeah.
And that's how France the economy is. That's the main thing that drives France's economy.
Yeah, well, without that, they wouldn't have such a generous social, welfare policies. They wouldn't be able to afford it.
To answer your question, anti-gravity, just gonna be blunt. I don't believe, and I don't trust any African government to stand up against this. To be honest, the de facto, when you ask me about that, and when it's talked about, my de facto thought is, they just gonna roll over, they just gonna give it to them until I'm proven wrong. To me, that's my honest opinion.
Or they'll get killed, like like one of the greatest, African leaders to me is the former president of Burkina Faso. I forget his name.
Thomas Sankara.
Thomas Sankara. Yeah.
I don't. When I say this, I don't want people to think I'm saying it because I'm feeding into stereotypes, but I don't believe they have the mental fortitude to outmaneuver or out. You echoing again.
Is that me?
Yes. Testing. Yeah, I just don't think they either. I don't want to say they lack it, but they choose not. You know what? This is a better way to put it. They don't have the testicles, the balls to stand their ground. They're weak, and I know that's saying something big, knowing the playing field, knowing what you're up against. But that's the position you chose. So with that said, I don't think they have the testicular fortitude to stand their ground. None of them.
Okay, what about then the former the dictator of Somalia, Siad Barre? He ruled his country, with iron fist, but at the same time, he wasn't beholden to either the United States or the Soviet Union. He used to play them off each other to get, the most benefit he could.
That's the start to rule with iron fist. You can rule with an iron fist and still be a bad dictator. But if you rule with an iron fist and did good things for his people, then what? What are you gonna? Are you gonna? Is that ruling going to equate to no foreign power being incapable of coming in and doing what Turkey is doing and doing what Russia's? Well, that's in Somaliland, but no other power coming in and taking advantage.
But no, this is a while back. I'm talking about this.
Okay. Yeah, but that's my opinion. They don't have the testicular fortitude to stand their ground. That's my opinion.
Right. Well, like, yeah, I kind of agree with you, to a point, but hopefully in the future that it doesn't go on that way. You know.
Well, don't forget, you're not too young to be called in by the Somali government to go in and fight in Syria.
I don't have the citizenship, so they can't at the moment.
And that's bad.
Wait, you have dual citizenship?
Well, you have a citizenship, just by descent,
Okay.
Wait, who, you?
being in, yeah.
Huh?
What was that?
Wait, you said you have citizenship?
No, I said you get that citizenship just by fact of being Somali. You automatically get that citizenship.
Oh.
But it doesn't mean I have it with me. I'm a U.S. citizen.
Wait, I'm confused.
Oh no, Mike said you might get called in to go fight in, by the Turks.
Oh, I thought you were saying like you are from Somalia, like your folks from Somalia.
Oh
but
yeah,
you don't.
They are.
Oh, okay. But that's what I thought you were saying. I thought you were saying your folks are from Somalia, but you just don't have the citizenship that they have.
Right.
Yeah. That's what I was saying. See, they may call you.
Well, hopefully not.
And when you do, you know what you do?
What was it?
You go to Canada and go to one of them towns right next to a lake way north that nobody heard of in 10 years.
Right? Maybe like Alberta, Saskatchewan or something.
Or something like that. But I just when I first came to the conscious community, I said it was so much, it was full of piss and vinegar. I'm like, yeah, man, we can do this. Da 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 da. Yeah, forget that. We African, we can do anything. Then you in it for you in the community for a while, and that thought start getting cracks in it. Then the cracks becomes fissures and schisms, and you start to think logically, and you say, they're not gonna do nothing.
Well, I guess it's just like a matter of like integrity. If you're willing to stand for the words that you say, what I mean? So that's really what it takes. It's, someone who's not corrupt, and then I guess that goes in with integrity. But
when you say not corrupt, that rules out a good portion of them.
Well, it's also very easy to become corrupt. That's also another problem. You know what I mean? It's and like for every country, like let's take Somalia for example. Like any of the former leaders, they'll have this positive, oh, we're gonna build the country, we're gonna do this and that, blah blah blah. And then once they get into the position, and they start seeing all that Qatari money, the U.S. money, bam, they're gone.
I just don't have faith, to be honest, in the government. That is, I'm not saying the people themselves, but the government officials, the people that hold the real power. I just don't. That's all. So anything else? Oh, go ahead.
So then, what do you think they should do then?
I don't know what they what. I don't know. Logically speaking, you will have to ask yourself, okay, what in order for us to be strong, in order for us to be a powerhouse, in order for us to basically not be susceptible to outside influence, what needs to happen? And when I say I don't believe in them, I truly believe there are a plethora. And when I say plethora, that's not even a word that can can engulf the many number of people that I think that are intellectually astute to figure this out. You can figure it out. You can say, okay, we need infrastructure. We need the basics. We need people who look like us to have the capabilities, the intellectually to say, okay, the civil engineers to say, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And to work out that plan over the long term, over the long haul. There's people who've done it. I mean, look at China, even though they did it by, well, they just did it. They did it. So you can't say it cannot be done. It can be done. You just have to work it. You just have to see it to fruition. They can do it intellectually. It's just the standing their ground part and penalizing or even offing people that go against the African way. Because if a Saudi or some type of Arab or somebody say, oh, I'm going to bring in the enemy and I'm going to tell them everything because whatever, if that person is found out, you can imagine what's going to happen to that person. You can only imagine. But will that happen to an African that betrays their people? I don't. It may. I say 10% possibility, but even still, they have a high chance of being scot-free.
Oh, they run to Europe. That's basically what happens.
And trust me, there's enough black people in Europe to say, okay, even if you run here, you know.
But another problem is like, I guess the way to describe it is, I guess, big manism. You know, like you got to be the big man all the time. I don't know if this. I feel like this is a general African thing, whether it's like African Americans.
It don't matter anywhere. We got the same thinking.
Like I got to be the one in charge.
Yeah, it's me. It's the whole Tony Montana thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I feel.
I don't have anything else.
Okay.
What was that?
Like you said, he doesn't have anything else.
Oh, okay.
Any closing thoughts?
Nope, that's it.
Yeah. Oh, you listeners can't.
I'll see you.
Hey, Anti-Grad, I want to ask you a few questions after the broadcast.
Oh, okay, sure.
All right, but thank you all for coming in. Wednesday, another geopolitics talk. We talk more about the chessboard today and the logical analysis of what some people are doing. But don't forget to tune in Friday when we talk about economics. So, everybody have a good night.
Peace.